The notification appeared on my phone at 3:47 a.m. Motion detected. Front door. I should have ignored it. Should have rolled over, pulled a pillow over my head, and fallen back into whatever fitful sleep I could manage these days. But 3 years of grief had turned me into someone else. Someone who checked every notification, answered every unknown number, investigated every shadow that looked, just for a moment, like it might be him. My hand trembled as I opened the app. The timestamp read 3:46 a.m. The video was only 12 seconds long. I pressed play. The porch light cast its familiar yellow glow across our front steps. Everything looked normal. The welcome mat Sarah had bought 6 years ago, now faded and curled at the edges. The potted plant that had died last winter, which I still hadn't thrown away, because Thomas had helped me plant it when he was 9. Then he walked into frame. My son, my Thomas, wearing the same red hoodie he'd had on the day he disappeared. The same black backpack slung over his left shoulder. The same sneakers with the blue laces he'd insisted on buying, even though they cost $20 more than the regular ones. He walked up to the door, paused, turned his head slightly, not toward the camera, but past it, as if looking at something in the street behind him, something I couldn't see. Then he pushed open the door and walked inside. The video ended. I watched it again, and again, and again. By the 7th viewing, I noticed something that made my throat close up. The door wasn't locked. It simply opened when he touched it. Even though I knew I had locked it before bed. I always locked it. Had for 3 years now, ever since the police found Thomas's backpack in the woods behind the old quarry, 30 miles from our house. Ever since they stopped calling it a missing person case and started using words like presumed enclosure and moving forward. My hand was shaking so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. The rational part of my brain, the part that had atrophied over 3 years of searching, of posting flyers, of calling the tip line every time someone reported seeing a boy who looked like Thomas, tried to speak up. It's a glitch, a video error, maybe something from 3 years ago that the camera system is just now processing. But Thomas looked exactly the same. Not 3 years older, not 16, still 13, still baby-faced, still wearing that hoodie I'd washed and folded and placed in his closet like a shrine. I pulled up the camera's main feed. Live view, 3:52 a.m. The front hallway was empty, dark, exactly as it should be. I got out of bed. The house was silent as I crept downstairs, my heart hammering against my ribs like something trying to escape. I'd left the lights off. Some instinct I didn't understand told me I needed to stay in the dark, needed to see before being seen. The front door was locked. I checked it twice, 3 times, yanking on the handle until my palm hurt. Locked. Definitely locked. The deadbolt was turned. The chain was latched, exactly as I'd left it. But in the video, Thomas had walked right through. Thomas. My voice came out broken, barely a whisper. Baby, are you here? Nothing. I checked every room. His bedroom, untouched, exactly as he'd left it. The bathroom, the kitchen, the basement that he'd always been afraid of, where we'd stored his old toys and Sarah's craft supplies before she left me, unable to bear the weight of a missing child and a husband who couldn't stop searching. Empty. All of it. Empty. I returned to the living room and pulled out my laptop, hands still shaking as I logged into the security camera's cloud storage. I'd installed the system 2 years ago, after the police had stopped actively investigating, after everyone else had given up. I'd needed to feel like I was doing something, watching something, protecting what little I had left. The archive went back 24 months. I started scrolling through the motion-detected events. Most were predictable. Me leaving for work, coming home, the mailman, deer in the yard, once a raccoon that had knocked over the trash can. Then I found it, 2 days ago, 3:46 a.m. The same video. Thomas walking up the steps, opening the door, disappearing inside. My breath caught. For days ago, 3:46 a.m. 6 days ago, 3:46 a.m. 8 days ago, 10 days ago. Every other night, like clockwork, for the past 3 weeks. Always at exactly 3:46 a.m. Always the same 12 seconds. Thomas approaching. Thomas entering. Thomas vanishing into my house like smoke, leaving no trace, no sound, no evidence that he'd ever been there at all. I scroll faster, my vision blurring with tears. 6 months of recordings. A year. 18 months. He'd been coming home. The entire time I'd been sleeping upstairs, drowning in grief, he'd been coming home. Every other night. Walking through my locked door like it wasn't even there. And I'd never known. I called Detective Morrison at 4:37 a.m. He answered on the 6th ring, his voice thick with sleep and irritation. "Mr. Harding, it's 4 in the goddamn morning." "He's coming home." I said, "Thomas is coming home." The silence on the other end lasted too long. "Mr. Harding, David, we've been through this. The grief counselor recommended. I have video." My voice cracked. Almost 2 years of video. Every other night. Same time. He walks up the door and comes inside. "David." Morrison's voice had changed, taken on that careful, gentle quality people use when they think you're losing your mind. "I'm going to need you to send me that footage. But I'm also going to need you to promise me you'll call Dr. Weber today. Can you do that? Just watch it," I said, and hung up. I sent him everything. Every single recording. 47 videos of my son coming home. Then I did what I should have done immediately. I watched the house from the camera's live feed and waited for 3:46 a.m. to come around again. Morrison arrived at 2:30 p.m. that afternoon. He looked older than I remembered, grayer, heavier, with dark circles under his eyes that suggested he hadn't slept after our call. He stood on my porch, the same porch where Thomas appeared every other night, and his expression was something between concern and fear. "Can I come in?" he asked. I let him inside. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Thomas had done his homework, where Sarah and I had argued about whether to let him go to Jake Morrison's house that day 3 years ago, the day he'd vanished between the bus stop and home, just erasing the world like he'd never existed. Morrison pulled out his laptop. I watched the videos. And he was quiet for a long time, his thick fingers drumming against the table. "I need you to understand something, David. What I'm about to tell you, it's not official. It's not in any report. But I've been a cop for 28 years, and I've seen things that don't make it into the files." My heart was racing. "What are you saying?" "You're not the first," he said quietly. "There have been others, parents who reported similar things. Not many. Maybe 8 or 9 cases over the past 15 years. Different towns, different states. Always the same pattern. Child goes missing. Months or years later, they start appearing in security footage, photos, reflections. Always brief. Always at night. Never aging. The room felt too small suddenly, the walls pressing in. What happened to those parents?" Morrison's jaw tightened. 2 of them are in psychiatric facilities. 1 died. Suicide, officially, though the circumstances were questionable. The others, he paused. They disappeared. Disappeared? Stopped answering calls. Stopped showing up to work. Houses found empty, like they just walked out in the middle of the day and never came back. He looked at me, and his eyes held something I'd never seen there before. Fear. "David, I need you to stop watching those videos." "Are you insane?" I stood up, the chair scraping against the floor. "That's my son. That's Thomas. How can you ask me to?" "Because whatever you're seeing, it's not Thomas." Morrison's voice was sharp now, urgent. "I don't know what it is. Some kind of residual energy, a recording burned into reality, something else entirely. But every parent who kept watching, who kept engaging with it, who tried to interact with whatever was appearing." He leaned forward. "They're gone, David. Every single one." "I don't care," I said, and I meant it. "If there's even a chance, there's no chance." He grabbed my arm, his grip painful. "Thomas is gone. Whatever this is, it's not bringing him back. It's something else. Something that gets stronger the more you watch it, the more you believe in it." I pulled away. "Get out. David, get out." He left, but not before placing a card on my table, a psychologist's contact information. Same as always, as if therapy could fix this. as if any amount of talking could change what I'd seen with my own eyes. That night, I set up camp in my living room, laptop open, camera feed streaming live. I made coffee. Strong, black. The way Sarah used to make it when we'd stayed up late watching movies. Thomas asleep upstairs, the world perfect and whole. I would wait for 3:46 a.m. I would wait for my son. He came at exactly 3:46 a.m. I watched him walk up the steps in real time, the laptop screen glowing in the dark living room. Every detail exactly as before: the red hoodie, the backpack, the sneakers, the slight turn of his head, as if looking at something behind him. But this time, I wasn't upstairs. This time, I was 10 feet from the door. I heard it open, the sound of the lock clicking, the hinges creaking, the soft brush of the door against the frame. Sounds I'd heard 10,000 times, sounds I've known anywhere, but I hadn't unlocked it. I stood frozen, my breath caught somewhere in my chest. Footsteps. Soft. Thomas's footsteps. I knew them like I knew my own heartbeat, the way he always dragged his left foot slightly, a habit from an ankle injury in soccer when he was 10. The footsteps moved through the hallway, toward the stairs. Thomas. My voice was barely a whisper. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Complete, suffocating silence. The kind of silence that exists in the space between worlds, between what is and what should never be. Thomas, baby, it's Dad. It's okay. I'm here. A sound. Soft. Wet. Like something breathing that shouldn't be breathing. Something with lungs made of the wrong materials. Pulling in air that burned. Dad. His voice. Thomas's voice. But wrong. The pitch was right. The tone was right. But underneath it was something else. Something vast and hungry and ancient. Wearing my son's voice like a stolen coat. I should have run. Every instinct screamed at me to run. Instead, I stepped into the hallway. He stood at the base of the stairs. In the darkness, he looked exactly like Thomas. Exactly. Same height, same build, same way of standing with his weight on his right leg. The backpack was still on his shoulder, but his eyes, in the dim light from the street, his eyes reflected wrong, like a cat's eyes. But the color was off. Not green or gold, but something else. Something that hurt to look at directly, that made my vision swim and my head ache. I've been looking for you, I whispered. For 3 years, where have you been? Coming home, he said and smiled. I come home every night. Dad, don't you want to come home? Yes. God, yes. Then watch, he said. Keep watching. Soon you'll be able to see me all the time. Not just on the camera. Not just at night. All the time, Dad, we'll be together again. Tears were streaming down my face. I miss you so much. I miss you too. He took a step closer. Another. Mom left because she couldn't see me anymore. She stopped watching. But you kept watching. That's good, Dad. That's so good. He was close enough to touch now. I reached out. My hand passed through him like smoke. Cold. So cold it burned. Like sticking my hand into a freezer full of something worse than ice. The cold spread up my arm, into my shoulder, toward my heart. I stumbled backward, gasping. When I looked up, he was gone. But on the stairs, in the dust that had accumulated over years of grief and neglect, were footprints. Small, child-sized, leading up to the second floor, to Thomas's room. I didn't sleep, couldn't sleep. Instead, I sat on the couch, staring at the laptop, watching the camera footage over and over. At 6 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Harding? A woman's voice, professional but strained. My name is Dr. Sarachun. Detective Morrison gave me your number. I need to talk to you about what's happening. Are you the psychiatrist he wanted me to see? No, I'm a physicist. I study quantum phenomena and other things. Things that don't fit into conventional physics. She paused. I've been tracking cases like yours for 7 years. Mr. Harding, how long have you been watching the videos? I found them yesterday, but they go back almost 2 years. And last night, did you try to make contact? How did you? Because that's always when it gets worse, she said. her voice urgent. "The videos are one thing. They're like echoes, impressions. But when you interact with it, when you acknowledge it, you give it something it needs. Your attention, your belief, your grief. I don't understand." "I'm not sure I do either," she admitted. "But I have a theory. When something traumatic happens, when a child disappears, dies, vanishes from the world, it leaves a wound, not in the place where it happened, but in the people left behind. And sometimes something else finds that wound, something that's hungry. It pushes through, we're in the shape of what was lost, feeding on the grief and the desperate need to believe." My hands were shaking. "You're saying that's not my son." "I'm saying I don't know what it is. But I know it gets stronger every time you watch. Every time you acknowledge it. And eventually..." She stopped. "Eventually what?" "Eventually, it doesn't need the videos anymore. It becomes real enough to exist without them. And when that happens..." Another pause. "The parents disappear. Always at night. Always with no signs of struggle. We find the houses empty. But the security cameras, if there are any, they show the same thing. The parent walking down the stairs at 3:46 a.m., opening the door, and walking out into the dark with their child. Walking out where? We don't know. The footage cuts off at the edge of the frame, but they're never seen again. I thought of the footprints on the stairs, the cold that had burned my arm. What do I do? Stop watching, she said. Delete the videos. Turn off the cameras. And whatever you do, do not engage with it again if it appears tonight. It will, I said. It comes every other night. Then you need to leave. Stay somewhere else. Stay with a friend. Check into a hotel. I don't care. But do not be in that house at 3:46 a.m. After she hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at the laptop. I should have listened to her. Should have packed a bag, driven to a motel, put as much distance between myself and that house as possible. Instead, I went upstairs, to Thomas's room. The footprints ended at his door. I stood in the hallway, staring at them, at the small impressions in the dust that proved that something had been here. Something had walked up these stairs. My hand was on the doorknob before I realized I had moved. The room looked exactly as Thomas had left it 3 years ago. I kept it that way deliberately. The unmade bed, the clothes on the floor, the homework spread across his desk, the posters on the walls, superheroes and video game characters, and that one band he'd been obsessed with for exactly 3 months. But something was different now. On his desk, his laptop was open. It had been closed when I last checked. I was sure of it. I checked this room every day, and the laptop was always closed, just as he'd left it. Now it was open, and the screen was on. I approached slowly, my heart hammering. The screen showed a video file. Paused. The thumbnail showed our front porch at night. My cursor was already hovering over the play button, though I hadn't touched the trackpad. I played it. The footage was from a camera angle I didn't recognize. Too high, too far to the left of where I'd mounted security camera. The timestamp read, 3 years ago, 3:46 a.m. My breath stopped. Thomas walked into frame, but not from the street, from inside the house. He was wearing pajamas, not the red hoodie. His feet were bare. His eyes were wide and vacant, like someone sleepwalking. He walked to the front door, opened it, stepped outside, and behind him, following him into frame, was the video corrupted, static, glitches. But for just a moment, less than a second, I saw something. A shape, tall, wrong, made of angles that didn't exist, of shadows that fell in impossible directions. Thomas followed it into the street. The video ended. I watched it again, and again, trying to see what had led my son out of the house that night 3 years ago, what had taken him. On the 5th viewing, I noticed the time, 3:46 a.m., the exact same time he appeared in the security footage now. My phone rang. "Dr. Chun, did you leave?" she asked immediately. "I'm in his room." "Christ, get out of that house. Right now." "Mr. Harding, listen to me." "There's a video," I said, "from the night he disappeared. He walked out of the house, following something. It was already here, in the house. It took him. Then you know what it wants, she said quietly. It's been trying to take you for 2 years. Every time you watched those videos, every time you acknowledged it, you gave it more power to pull you through. That's what happened to the other parents. They didn't just disappear, they followed their children into wherever these things come from. I have to go, I said. What? No, Mr. Harding, you need to. I hung up because I'd realized something that made my chest tight and my hands steady for the first time in 3 years. Thomas hadn't disappeared. He'd been taken, and he'd been trying to come back ever since. Every other night, 3:46 a.m., walking up to the door, trying to get home. But something was wrong. He couldn't fully manifest, couldn't fully push through into reality. He needed help. He needed someone to pull him back. He needed me. I prepared throughout the day. I pulled every photo of Thomas the first could find, arranged them throughout the house. I played videos on my phone, on my laptop, on every screen I owned, his soccer games, his birthday parties, Christmas mornings. I filled the house with Thomas, with memories, with everything he had been. If the thing, the entity, the wound, whatever Dr. Chin had called it, fed on grief and belief, then I would give it everything I had. I would believe so hard that reality itself would have to bend. At 3:40 p.m., Morrison showed up again. I heard you talk to Dr. Chun, he said. He looked exhausted, defeated. David, please, don't do this. Do what? Whatever you're planning. He gestured at the photos, the videos playing on loop. This is exactly what the others did before they disappeared. They tried to pull their kids back. They thought they could. They didn't love their children enough, I said calmly. That's why they failed. That's not Jesus, David. That's not how this works. Love isn't enough. Love has never been enough against whatever this is. Then what is? He had no answer. At 3:30 a.m., Morrison left, but not before saying, quietly, I hope you're right. I really do. But if you're not, he looked at me. If you're not, I'm sorry I couldn't stop you. I waited in the living room. Every screen in the house played memories of Thomas. The clock on the wall ticked toward 3:46 a.m. My phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Chun. Please don't do this. You can still leave. You can still survive. I silenced it. 3:45 a.m. The temperature dropped. Not gradually. All at once. Like someone had opened a window into winter, into somewhere so cold that frost started forming on the inside of the windows. 3:46 a.m. The door opened. Thomas walked in. But this time he was clearer, more solid, more real. I could see the details. The freckle on his left cheek, the scar on his chin from when he'd fallen off his bike at 7. Even his smell, that specific combination of soap and grass in childhood that I thought I'd forgotten. Dad, he said and smiled. You're still watching. Always, I whispered. I never stopped. I never will. That's good. He took a step closer. Behind him, the door remained open. Beyond it, I couldn't see the street. I couldn't see anything. Just darkness. Vast and hungry. Are you ready to come with me? Where? Home, he said. The real home, where I've been waiting. It's not far, Dad. Just through the door. Just into the dark. And then we'll be together again. Forever. Won't that be nice? I stood, walked toward him, toward my son. Thomas, I said, do you remember the time we went camping? You were 8. You were scared of the dark. And I told you there was nothing in the darkness that wasn't there in the light. Do you remember what you said? He tilted his head, confusion flickering across his features. You said, but Dad, in the dark, I can't see you. And if I can't see you, how do I know you're really there? Tears were streaming down my face. And I said, because I'll always be here, baby, even when you can't see me, especially then. The thing wearing Thomas's face was very still. My son would remember that. I said quietly, my son would remember that I promised never to leave him in the dark. Dad, You're not Thomas. My voice broke. You're just something wearing his face, using my grief, my love, but you made a mistake. You didn't take those memories. You can't, because they're not yours. They're ours. They're real. The temperature plummeted further. The lights flickered. The shape began to change. You should have come, it said, and Thomas's voice was gone now, replaced by something vast and wrong. You would have joined him. I would have let you. But now, I grabbed the laptop, pulled up the security footage folder, and deleted everything. Every video, every recording. 2 years of footage, gone in seconds. The thing shrieked, a sound that made my ears bleed, that made the windows crack. And Thomas's form began to dissolve, like smoke and wind. I love you, I whispered to whatever remained of my son in that darkness. I love you and I'm sorry, but I can't follow you. Because if I do, then no one will remember you as you really were. And I promised I would always be here. The door slammed shut. The temperature returned to normal. The house was silent. I collapsed on the floor, sobbing because I knew that I had just let my son go for the second time. And this time it was forever. Detective Morrison found me the next morning, passed out on the living room floor, surrounded by photos of Thomas. The security camera had been ripped from the wall, not torn down, ripped, as if something had grabbed it with impossible strength and yanked it free, wires and all. There were no more videos after that night. Dr. Chin called me a week later. She said what I'd done was unprecedented, that no other parent had managed to resist, that they'd all follow their children into the dark. She asked if I regretted it. I told her the truth, every single second of every single day. But I also told her this. Thomas loved superhero movies. He hated broccoli but loved asparagus, which made no sense. He wanted to be a marine biologist, even though he'd never seen the ocean. He laughed too loud at his own jokes. He was scared of basements, but not of heights. He was my son, and he was real, and he was loved. And as long as I'm alive, someone will remember those things. Someone will remember him as he truly was, not the thing that wore his face, not the echo that tried to pull me through. Just Thomas, my son, my boy. But sometimes, late at night, I still wonder. The security camera is gone. The recordings are deleted. But 3 nights ago, my phone buzzed at 3:46 a.m. Motion detected. Front door. I haven't checked it. I don't think I will. Because Dr. Chin was wrong about one thing. The videos weren't the beginning. They were never the beginning. They were the warning. And I'm starting to realize, in the darkness of my bedroom, in the silence of 3:46 a.m., when I hear footsteps in the hallway that sound exactly like Thomas's, that some doors, once opened, can never truly be closed. Some hungers are never satisfied. And some things, once they've noticed you, never stop watching back. Last night, I found footprints on the stairs again, leading down toward my bedroom door. They're getting closer. I'm writing this at 2:47 a.m. I have 59 minutes. After I found the footprints leading to my bedroom, I did what I should have done months ago. I called Dr. Chun and asked her the question that had been burning in my mind since our first conversation. The parents who disappeared. I said, did they have anyone? Spouses? Other children? Friends who checked on them? The silence on her end told me everything. They were alone, she said finally. Every single one. That's the pattern I missed initially. Divorced, widowed, estranged from family. The missing child was all they had left. Why does that matter? Because isolation is what it feeds on most, she explained. Not just grief, not just love, but the absolute certainty that there's nothing left worth staying for. When you deleted those videos, you didn't just reject the entity. You chose life. You chose the memory of your son over the illusion. But David, she paused. Are you still choosing that? Every day. I looked around my house. The photos of Thomas everywhere. His room unchanged. The absence of Sarah, of friends, of anything except the ghost of my son. No, I whispered. Then it's not finished with you. That conversation was 6 days ago. Since then, I've been making changes. I called Sarah. We talked for 3 hours, both of us crying, both of us admitting we let Thomas's disappearance destroy not just our marriage, but our will to keep living. She's coming to visit next week. We're going to pack up Thomas's room together. Not to forget him. Never to forget him, but to let him rest. I called Morrison and volunteered to help with other missing children cases. To use what I know, what I've learned, to maybe help other parents before they're consumed by the same darkness that almost took me. I even started therapy. Real therapy. Not to get over Thomas, but to learn how to carry the weight of his loss without letting it crush me. And 3 days ago, I installed new security cameras. Not to watch for Thomas, to watch for it, because Dr. Chin was right about something else. The entity doesn't give up, it just waits. It probes for weakness, for the moment when grief becomes isolation again, when the door inside me opens wide enough for it to slip through. But here's what I've learned, what I need you to understand. At 3:15 a.m., I'm watching a live feed. The street is empty. The porch is dark. Everything looks normal. But I've learned to look deeper, to see what the camera sees that I can't. There at the edge of the frame, a shadow, not cast by anything visible, not moving with the wind or the streetlights, just standing, waiting. It's been there every night for the past week, getting incrementally closer. Tonight, it's reached the property line. I know what Dr. Chin would tell me to do. Run, leave, get as far from this house as possible. But I've realized something she doesn't understand, something none of the researchers or investigators could comprehend because they haven't lived it. Running doesn't work. Not because the entity will follow, though it will, but because the real haunting isn't in the house. It's in me. Every parent who disappeared didn't just follow their child into the darkness. They'd already been living in that darkness for months, for years. The entity didn't drag them away. It simply showed them a door they were already desperate to walk through. The grief, the isolation, the belief that nothing in this world mattered anymore because the one thing that mattered was gone. That's the real monster. That's what actually consumes you. The thing at my door, whatever it is, wherever it comes from, it's just a predator that learned to recognize the scent of prey. It finds people who've already given up, who've already decided that the world of the living has nothing left to offer. And it gives them an excuse to stop fighting. At 3:32 a.m., my phone rings. David, Sarah's voice. I know it's late, but I couldn't sleep. I keep thinking about Thomas, about that camping trip you mentioned. Do you remember when he caught that fish and was so excited he fell into the stream? I laugh, tears streaming down my face. He was soaked, refused to let go of the fish, though, carried it back to camp like a trophy. He was so proud, she said softly. God, he was so alive, wasn't he? So completely, beautifully alive. Yeah, I whisper, he was. We talk until 3:45 a.m. About Thomas, about the good days, about how we're going to honor his memory by actually living, by being the parents he'd want us to be even though he's not here to see it. At 3:46 a.m., I look at the camera feed. The shadow is on my porch, right in front of the door. And for just a moment, less than a second, it takes shape. I see what it really is. Not Thomas. Not anything that was ever human. Just something old and patient and eternally hungry, wearing whatever face it thinks will open the door. But the door stays closed. Because I'm not alone anymore. Because I've chosen, actively, deliberately chosen, to stay in the light. The shadow doesn't move. Doesn't knock. Doesn't do anything except stand there, waiting. And then as 3:47 a.m. arrives, it fades. Not gone. I know it's not gone. Just waiting for another night. Another moment of weakness. Another crack in my armor. But here's the thing it doesn't understand. The thing that no predator can comprehend. Grief doesn't have to be a wound. It can be a scar. Still there, still tender, but healed enough that you can keep living. Keep fighting. Keep choosing the light even when the darkness promises reunion with everything you've lost. The sun rises at 6:42 a.m. I'm still awake, still watching the camera feed, but now I'm also looking at something else. The website for the missing children's Senator Morrison told me about. They need volunteers. People who understand what the families are going through. People who can offer hope without offering false promises. I send an email. Then I go upstairs and start packing up Thomas's room. Not all of it. I'm not ready for that yet. But some of it. The clothes that don't fit anymore. That will never fit anyone again because Thomas is gone and no amount of wishing will change that. I find his journal. The one he kept sporadically. Entries separated by weeks or months. I read the last entry. Dated 2 days before he disappeared. Dad was sad today. I heard him and Mom fighting again. I wish I could fix it. I wish I could make everyone happy like I used to. Sometimes I feel like I'm not enough. But Dad always says I'm his whole world. That's a lot of pressure. What if I can't be that? What if I mess up? I close the journal. Tears blurring my vision. You were enough. I whispered to the empty room. You were always enough. And I'm so sorry that I made you feel like you had to be anything other than exactly who you were. This is what the entity doesn't understand. What it can never replicate. No matter how perfectly it mimics Thomas's face. My son was real. Flawed and scared and perfect in his imperfection. He wasn't just my grief's ideal memory of him. He was a whole person, complex and contradictory and impossibly precious. And I dishonor him by turning him into a shrine. By stopping my life at the moment I lost him. He would hate that. He would want me to keep going. To keep living. To remember him with joy instead of just sorrow. At 9 a.m., Morrison calls. I saw your email to the center, he says. They'd be lucky to have you. Thanks. David, did anything happen last night? I look at the camera footage from 3:46 a.m. The shadow on my porch. The moment it almost became real. No, I say. Nothing happened. Because it didn't. The entity came, yes, but I didn't open the door. I didn't feed it. I didn't give it what it wanted. And that's everything. I'm sharing this story not because it's over. It's not over, not really. But because I need you to understand something. If you've lost someone, if you're drowning in grief, if every day feels like you're just going through the motions, waiting for something to make life worth living again, please hear me. The darkness will come for you. Maybe not in the form of an entity at your door. Maybe just as a slow erosion of will, the gradual belief that nothing matters anymore, that you're just marking time until you can be reunited with what you've lost. But that's not love. That's not honoring the person you've lost. That's just letting the grief consume you until there's nothing left. I almost made that mistake. I almost believed that my love for Thomas required me to stop living, to exist only as a monument to his memory. But Thomas was alive. Vibrantly, messily, perfectly alive. And the only way to truly honor, that is, to keep living too, not to forget, never to forget, but to carry the memory forward into a life that continues, that grows, that finds new meaning even in the shadow of unbearable loss. The entity at my door, whatever it is, it's still out there, still waiting, still hoping I'll have a moment of weakness, of isolation, of despair deep enough that I'll finally open that door. But every day I choose to keep living. Every time I reach out to another parent, every moment I remember Thomas with love instead of just pain. That door closes a little more. The scars remain. The grief remains. It always will. But I remain too. And that makes all the difference. In the end, this story isn't really about supernatural entities or mysterious disappearances. It's about something far more common and far more terrifying. The way grief can isolate us, consume us, and ultimately destroy us if we let it. The lesson is this: your grief is valid. Your pain is real. Your loss is unbearable. But survival, true survival, means choosing to live despite that pain, not waiting to die because of it. The people we've lost wouldn't want us to become hollow monuments to their memory. They'd want us to carry their love forward into lives that continue to have meaning, purpose, and connection. The real monster isn't at the door. It's the voice inside that tells you nothing matters anymore. That voice is a true predator, and it's far more common than any supernatural entity could ever be. If you're struggling with loss, please reach out. Talk to someone. Let people in. Don't isolate yourself in your grief, because that isolation is exactly what allows the darkness, metaphorical or otherwise, to take root. Your loved one's memory deserves to be carried by someone who's alive, not just breathing, but actually living. Choose life every single day, especially when it feels impossible. That's how you honor the dead. That's how you survive. It's 3:44 a.m. as I finish writing this. In 2 minutes, the camera will capture something or it won't. I'm not watching the feed anymore. I'm writing this instead. I'm choosing to engage with the living world instead of monitoring for ghosts. But before I close my laptop, I want to say one more thing. Thomas, if somehow you can hear this, not the thing that wears your face, but the real you, wherever you are, I love you, I miss you, and I'm going to keep living in a way that makes you proud. Not by stopping time at the moment I lost you, but by moving forward, carrying your memory like a light instead of an anchor. And to everyone else who's lost someone, who's been visited by their own version of the thing at 3:46 a.m., close that door. Choose the light. Stay alive, not just for them, for yourself. The camera feed just updated. Motion detected, front door. I'm not going to check it. Not tonight. Not ever again. Some doors are meant to stay closed. If this story resonated with you, if you felt that darkness at your own door, or if you know someone who's struggling with loss, please don't keep this to yourself. Share this story. Not because it's scary, but because it's true. Because somewhere out there, someone needs to hear that they can survive their grief. That choosing to live isn't betraying the person they've lost. That the real haunting is the isolation, and the real escape is connection. Like this video, if it moved you, if it terrified you, if it made you think about loss and love, and the thin line between honoring the dead and joining them. Subscribe to this channel because these aren't just horror stories. They're warnings, lessons wrapped in terror, truths hidden in fiction. Every story I tell has a purpose beyond the scares. And if you're here, watching, listening, you're part of this community of people who understand that the real monsters aren't supernatural. They're the darkness we carry inside ourselves. Leave a comment telling me your thoughts. Have you ever felt that pull toward isolation? Have you ever heard footsteps at 3:46 a.m.? Have you ever seen something that shouldn't be there? Something that wore the face of someone you've lost? You're not alone. None of us are. And that's exactly how we survive. Ring the notification bell, because next week's story will explore what happens when a woman starts receiving text messages from her deceased husband's phone. Messages that know things only he could know, that offer comfort and love, but that gradually become demands. It's called The Last Text, and it will make you question every message you've ever sent to someone who's gone. Until then, remember, the darkness is always waiting, but so is the dawn. Choose the dawn, every single time. And whatever you do, don't check your security cameras at 3:46 a.m. You might not like what's watching back.